Hello, everyone. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to remind you that my book, Drummers on Drumming, is available now on Amazon as both a paperback and an ebook. Based on the Big Fat 5 segment of this podcast, where I sit down with my favorite drummers to discuss the 5 records and stories that shaped their approach to the instrument, this book is packed with insights from the drummers who redefined how we think about the modern drum set. You can grab your copy now by checking the link in this episode's show notes or simply searching Drummers on Drumming on Amazon. So thank you for all the support, and now let's get into the show. What is up? Welcome back to Big Fat 5, a podcast financially supported by Big Fat Snare Drum. My name is Ben Hilsinger, and this week's guest is Evan Woodle. I was turned on to Evan's playing through a previous guest of the podcast, Sheridan Riley of the band Always. Evan got his start in the internationally acclaimed Roosevelt High School Jazz program in Seattle before going on to earn a jazz study degree from the University of Washington. Go Huskies. Evan has toured the world with countless acts, but remains an ambassador for the Seattle music scene. He also maintains a private studio, works with the local jazz institution Origin Arts, and is one of the co-founders and current organizers of the Racer Sessions, a bi-monthly free improvisation series and forum for cutting-edge composers and performers. I'm a huge fan of his playing, knowledge, and perspective on music, so I hope you enjoy the 5 records that helped shape Evan Woodle into the drummer he is today. Cheers. If you were to walk into Pro Drum, or in your case, maybe Trading Musician, and they're doing the Grooves of the Day thing, and they say, Evan, you have 30 seconds to a minute. What does Evan play?
That's a good question. Yeah. So many of those are like grooves, and like, I feel like I'm a little bit more comfortable, like if I just go into my practice room and I'm just like playing, I kind of really enjoy just improvising, but not necessarily like in a groove kind of a context, just like more open, like spacious way. So it's not maybe it wouldn't be the most Instagram friendly. Like I like subtlety and weird sounds, and
that's not a wrong answer, by the way. That's not who cares about Instagram, but I guess you are literally, I asked you for Instagram, so yeah.
Grooves, I don't know, like it, like the kind of, I mean, when I just go into a drum shop, I often like will just play like some kind of a jet, like if I'm testing out stuff, maybe just like play some swing time. I feel like that's the kind of my standard kind of thing to see what something sounds like. But yeah, if it was like a drum set and I wanted to just like explore it and have fun, I might just be a little more open with it. And yeah, it could depend on like what the stuff sounds like. How, if it's like dry sounding or really, really resonant, I'd probably, I'm like a Rogers guy.
Me too.
I kind of like how like they have this kind of big open sound. It's not quite as like contained maybe as like a Gretsch, like not quite as like tight and jazzy as that. It's like a little more open and I don't know. Yeah, so I'd probably.
I'm nodding my head.
I'd probably do some weird stuff. Yeah, like I'm just doing like a solo improvisation at like Racer Sessions.
Yeah. Speaking of Racer Sessions, if people don't know, we talked about that with Chris last time.
Yeah.
So when you improvise, this might be the most basic question, but is it really just dependent on what you had for breakfast that day, or do you like to start off on the snare or the cymbals? I mean, is it really just doesn't matter?
Well, yeah, at Racer, I mean, it's really all about who you're playing with, and we have a different artist, who does an opening set each session, and that can have a huge effect on the whole night, like depending on their vibe, if they have any kind of specific concepts they're bringing to the night. If the improv before you is like just this like very minimal thing, then maybe I'll feel like just going up there and kind of going nuts or something, just like at something, it's like a little contrast, so it really depends. That session is all about just listening to other people, and I mean, I try not to go up there with too many preconceived ideas or goals or anything, but so it's wildly different from
Oh, I love it.
It's just about it's really just about listening and listening to each other and making sure like everybody can be heard too, and like if you're playing with a cellist who's unamplified, I'm going to play really quiet. If I'm playing with like a guitar player, you might just like go ripping pretty hard, right? But
yeah, I've been really into improv probably the last year in my practice routine, because I don't come from a jazz background. I come from a more pop sensibility, I guess, and I'm in the middle. Actually, I'm almost done with it, but in the throes of Effortless Mastery for like the third time, and it's such an incredible book. If people don't know it, it's
I just started. I just read it for the first time. I'm towards the end, but yeah.
It's really good. I mean, it's easily digestible. Maybe a few longer than usual evening sessions you can get through it.
Yeah.
But it's a really beautiful book, just about getting in the headspace for improv, and kind of like what you were saying, just no preconceived notions. It might be very basic and surface level for someone who's really into improvisational music, but for me, it's really approachable, and it's at least a good stepping stone into the getting out of your own way mentally vibe.
Yeah. And I hadn't read that before, but there's like a lot of stuff there. I mean, Racer Session's been going on for 14 years, and but reading that now, I mean, like there's a lot of stuff in there that's very applicable to just improvising with people at a jam session, and really to anything. But like the whole thing of just being like relaxed, like that's like one of the primary things. Just make sure you're like relaxed and like don't care about sounding good.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's a big thing at like Racer too. It's like we're trying to make it a safe space to like experiment, like really like do experiment. Don't worry about sounding good or playing some hip whatever.
Yeah, it's fun. There's a quote in the book that I'm going to butcher, but it was, and I don't even remember the artist. Maybe it was Dizzy Gillespie or something. But a pianist was talking about how they were playing with them, the artist, and they hit a wrong note on the piano, and they were mortified. And then Dizzy was just like, "I hear you," and then Dizzy adjusted their solo based off those new chords, because Dizzy was just like, I interpreted it as a fun chord choice, not as a mistake. And so it just like cultivated this beautiful relief of like, to quote Miles Davis, there's no wrong notes, so I mean, the Racer Sessions, next time I'm up in Seattle, if it coincides, I'd love to come. That'd be so fun to just be there.
Yeah, and you can just, there's no pressure to play either. You can just hang and check it out. But
love it.
First and third Sundays at Gallery 1412.
Okay, there you go. People write that down. Well, speaking of Miles Davis, I didn't even mean to do this, but the first choice is such an incredible record. Album's Kind of Blue. Artist is, of course, Miles Davis. Release year's 1959. Listen to the whole record front to back, but a few key choices were So What, Freddie Freeloader, All Blues. The drummer that I don't think is talked about enough, but it's Jimmy Cobb. Maybe at least from my perspective. Maybe in your world, he's up there with everyone else that you talk about, but at least in the general realm, I don't hear his name a lot. Anyways, Jimmy Cobb, what about this record and this playing tickled your fancy?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of hesitated to put this on there because it's like it's the most essential jazz record or whatever, like it's like a given, but like it would just be dishonest to not put it on there. It was when I first started playing jazz in middle school, my director, Mock Escobedo at X-Time Middle School, I got up to the drum set and there was like a chart in it, had like quarter, eighth quarter, and I was like, oh, I got this. And I went like ding, 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 playing it straight. And then he's just like, I think the director like cut off the whole band. He's like, drummer, it's like, here comes the bride, here comes the bride, and
I've never heard it as someone say swing is to sing that song. That's funny.
Yeah, I hear like, walk the dog a lot, but yeah, he would say, here comes the bride. And then after that class, he's like, Evan, like, just go home and listen to this album, Kind of Blue. Like, just go listen. And then he played it on his computer, like, just to give me like a sample. He's like, just play along with this and check this out. And I was like, whoa, like, okay. Like, I never listened to like jazz, but I just kind of did jazz band because it sounded cool. Like, my friends were doing it. And so, yeah, then I like, went to Fred Meyer and bought the CD. That was like the only CD I had, jazz CD anyway. I mean, I had bought like Linkin Park and, Third Eye Blind and,
Oh, yeah.
As far as jazz, this is all I had. So I just played this endlessly and played along with it. Really had a huge influence on like just the way I play time, like my sense of swing, like comping. I can like sing along to like all those solos, like just that kind of phrasing. And so everything, those few tracks where they're kind of like swinging, like I feel like those were the ones I played along with the most because that was like what we did in middle school jazz band. We play like swing tunes.
Sure. All right. So which song do you want to listen to? So What, Freddie, Freeloader, or All Blues?
Yeah, I mean, it's So What is cool. Yeah, there's like that long intro. You could start at like 1:30 or something. There's like a trumpet solo. That's where it starts. Like Jimmy starts playing. Yeah, like I don't have anything new to say about it. Everybody's heard this, I'm sure like a million times. It's like all the comping is just so tasteful. All the solos are like just completely masterful and
But it's okay to bring it up because like I guarantee, and I'm talking to a listener right now, you're listening, you feel insecure about jazz music, you don't know where to start. This is a great one to start with. So there's never a wrong time to start. And so I'm happy that you were honest with yourself. I was like, no, I need to talk about Kind of Blue. I'm not going to, be too cool for school. So listen to it, get into it. I've only, like I was saying earlier, I've only really been into jazz and really trying to get into it the last year or so. But yeah, all right. So
great.
number 2. And so we discussed before the Yaya 3. Sure. It is based off the bass player you said, whose last name?
The organist. Samuel.
But yeah, so Yaya 3, YAYA, the number 3, all one word. So Yaya 3, the artist is Yaya 3, release year's 2002, key track is Slow Orbit, and then the drummer is basically what I've decided is my favorite drummer these days.
Yeah.
Levon Helm is still up there, will always be, but Brian Blade. And so yeah, take it away, and then we'll listen to some Slow Orbit.
Yeah, man, and Levon Helm too. Gosh,
oh yeah,
I had a hard time keeping him out of. I mean, yeah, he's up there.
Yep.
Brian is, I would say my number one. I mean, I just like, and it was hard to pick an album. I mean, just everything he's played on. Like, I mean, I went through a long period of just devouring as much Brian Blade as I possibly could. I mean, and there's another one. Like the first moment I heard it, I was in like a summer jazz camp. It was being held at University of Washington, and this instructor is a local player. He's great, Jay Thomas. Put on this track. I don't even remember what track it was, but after I remember being like, "Whoa, like what is this? This is great." And then like afterwards, it's like, "Yeah, it was Brian Blade on drums." All his stuff with Fellowship, all his stuff with this trio: Samuel Hill, Joshua Redman, Kenny Garrett. I mean, Wayne Shorter. I mean, like it just is really hard to pick an album. Seeing him live is like a huge part of it too, like watching videos, seeing him in person. I've gotten to meet him a couple times. I mean, he's just like, he has like just like an incredible presence and just like energy. And so yeah, but I just picked this. I mean, I love this album, and this track in particular just has some like incredibly tasty classic Brian Blade stuff going on. I mean, I've listened to this track in particular like a uncountable number of times, but I still like hear stuff in my playing where I'm like just trying to be like Brian Blade.
What would he do? Yeah. Well, number 3, the album is Speak. The artist is Speak, and the release year is 2010. And this is a friend of the pod, friend of you, Chris Acasiano. Yeah, the key tracks, Mustard Knuckles, Amalgam in the middle, which is a funny name. Yeah, take it away.
I remember seeing this band for the first time. They came and visited my high school. We were doing it was like a benefit concert for this saxophone player, Andrew D'Angelo. Yeah, they played, and it was like such a cool blend of jazz and like interesting ways of improvise, like more open kind of. It was like maybe my introduction to a little more of like an open, free kind of improvising, not like over changes necessarily or like a form. And like mixing rock and like metal and some of the melodic stuff is like a little poppy kind of. Kung Vu plays in this band. He's a faculty at University of Washington, and he brought so much of his influence into. So there's like, Glass Prism, like all these things are coming through Speak, and then just like punk jazz, or I don't know,
Yeah,
it just
totally.
had like a cool like edge to it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that had definitely a huge impact on me, and like it influenced my decision to go. I attended University of Washington, and this album I've listened to this album a lot, but it's more so than the album. It's like just hearing and seeing this band a lot live, and they were just really like, I feel like the spark that kind of started like this whole scene at surrounding University of Washington and Racer Sessions, Cafe Racer, and I've gone on to like be friends with them, like play with all of them, and so like it just like started this whole thing, like this massive big era of my life. So yeah, this album,
Love it.
Yeah.
Would you want to listen to Mustard Knuckles or Amalgam in the middle?
Mustard Knuckles is a little more of like a long, slow burn. So maybe you could just play like Amalgam in the middle from the top.
Okay.
I think that's cool. Yeah.
Cool album art too. All right, so number 4, Offend Maggie is the album. The artist is Deer Hoof, or Hoof, and the release here is 2008. Key track, Jagged Fruit, and the drummer is Greg Saunier. So take it away.
Yeah, the bass player for Speak, Luke Bergman, was the one who introduced me to this album. I remember he was driving me in his car going to something, a rehearsal, I don't know. He had the CD. He's like, have you checked this out before? And he played it, and I get another one of those moments where I was just like, wow, like,
oh my God,
I'd never heard that. That's like changes everything for me. It's like, I love it instantly. It's like the sound, the humor of it. There's some really cool, like the compositions are really cool. It's like a nice mix of like playful and fun and weird, and also like headier maybe stuff, like cool harmonic stuff. The drumming obviously is like so fun and like wild and so energetic. And again, seeing this band live is a big part of it. Just like they've got this like kind of telepathy going on, like where they can just change tempos, like, together with, they just can feel each other, and they're just like all like moving, and it's like amorphous. Yeah.
Are they still pretty active?
I think so. I think they still tour and put out music. I think they just put out an album not too long ago.
Did any of his setup and the way like his cymbal choices, his weird sizes, did any of that influence you, or when you got into him?
Not so much like the specific gear. Like, I maybe have occasionally done it, but like, the thing where he puts 2 ride cymbals together or whatever for his hi-hat. Mm-hmm. I don't really do that a lot. I think it's mostly just like the way he plays is like had made an influence. Yeah. Like just like the high energy thing. Like it's just really bombastic, and like all my friends who I was making music with were like also influenced by this. So like it just worked that the drumming style kind of had an effect on me, and then kind of fit in with the kind of music I was playing with my friends. So I love his gear though. I love his sound. Like he's got such a distinctive, like the weird like kick snare sound, and like the cymbals. This is another like maybe a long burn kind of tune, but I starting around 150 for like the next minute or minute and a half is like particularly rad, I think. Chills every time I listen to this part.
Hell yeah.
Like usually his setup is pretty minimal. Like often he's just like, I think there it sounds like he has a tom, like a floor tom maybe, but often he's just like kick, snare, hi-hat, like in one, ride cymbal, and like, and they're all the hi-hats like ride cymbals.
Exactly. His kick drum's a ride cymbal.
But it's like so he can like just like with the extreme dynamics, and just like he's so exploratory and does so much stuff to keep it interesting and compelling like the whole time.
Yep.
And just he can go from like just like chilling like on the ding 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 ding, and then it goes just like just explodes. He
has a lot of patience with time too. He definitely always it always feels like he's making sure that they're grounded.
Yeah, totally. So Deerhoof, listen to them for many years nonstop. And another actually funny story is like There was one time I was at a show, a friend of mine from New York was visiting, and somehow Deerhoof came up, and he said, there's like, for our generation, I feel like there's just like there's kind of like two schools for like people who kind of went to like study jazz in college. There's like the Deerhoof people, and there's like the Flying Lotus people.
I don't know much about Flying Lotus.
Yeah, I'm not like I don't either. Yeah, I'm like clearly like a Deerhoof person, but yeah, this is like an observation a friend of mine had. Like, he just felt like there's clearly like people who are like Deerhoof heads and people who are like Flying Lotus heads are trying to. Anyway.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I need to go down to Flying Lotus. I need to figure out which one I am. Not that I'm a jazz guy, but I'm trying to be.
Yeah.
But all right, so we've established it was Hi-Ho by Blake Mills, and the release here is 2014. One of the key tracks is Just Out of View, and Mr. Jim Keltner. I do want him on the show as well, so take it away.
It's a master. I haven't seen Jim. This is like an outlier on this list, I guess, because I haven't seen Jimmy Cobb or Miles Davis, but yeah, I haven't seen Jim play. And this one is like, it took the least amount of notes to affect me. I think it was like, especially on this track, it's like it just was like a resetting of like, I think it makes sense coming after so many years of listening to like Deerhoof, and like, I think a lot of the music I was playing too was like, more on the complex side, like playing bands, like, some through composed stuff. And then, lately it's been like a nice, refreshing change of pace, like this kind of thing. And I think that's another reason why like Paul Motion I've been so into lately, just like the patience and like the space and the rubato kind of thing. And like with this track, it's like it feels like simple, but then you listen to it, it's like, I love how there's just so much like subtlety and depth to what he's doing. And obviously it's like recorded beautifully, like you can hear like every little nuance that's going on. But yeah, I remember like hearing a friend of mine, Levi Gillis, showed me Blake Mills for the first time. And I mean, I like Blake's music too, and his production, and like the songs are really cool. And but particularly like Jim Keltner's drumming was like, can't believe I've never heard this before. Or like and now like getting more into Jim Keltner now, I was like, oh yeah, he's like on like so many records. I've definitely heard him, but just not like knowingly. I was like, oh, he's on Dreamweaver? Like, what?
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and like this stuff, especially, like it's like so open, and like I think speaks to me being kind of like coming from a jazz background, and I like playing in this kind of way where it's like there's a lot of variation, or like you're improvising with, it's not just like a straight kick snare, or I mean, I love that too, like. But playing with musicians who are like improvising musicians, and just like changing your approach just subtly, like you might, like in this track, he's just going and like varying where he's placing them, which drums he's hitting, how hard he's hitting them, like all those little things are really cool. Little cymbal hits here and there. I like all that little subtlety. I love. It's like mysterious. I don't really understand like how he does it. Like
maybe he doesn't even know.
Yeah, and I love his stuff with Bill Frisell too, like Gone Just Like a Train. That's another one. It's like some incredible, like, wow, what is going on here? I don't know how one person is doing this.
Hell yeah. Well, here's Just Out of View.
close together all her cat calls. I play dead through every song.
I do want to go into your honorable mention, Paul Motion. So take it away, yeah.
And this is an album I first heard when I was pretty young, like in high school, and I listened to it a lot, but I think back then, and maybe this is why it's not maybe like a top 5. I was maybe just, at that age, I was a little more into just jazz big band and just trying to get better at that, playing in like small groups and just, more like slightly more straight ahead kind of stuff. But I loved like listening to this album. Like it just, like I can't really copy that. I don't know what he's doing, but I like it. It was like beautiful, and also I'm sort of like smuggling in Bill Frisell here too, which is like has a huge impact like on everybody, like definitely my peers and friends. And this band, I mean, like lately, like I feel like my default like go to when I want to listen to some music and I don't have any other kind of like specific thing I want to check out is like this it's a radio show, but it's also in podcast form, called Uncle Paul's Jazz Closet. And it's so Paul Motion's niece, Cindy McGurl, does this radio show out of Maine. It's the music of Paul Motion, or music he was inspired by, or music that he inspired. So it's like this all like Paul Motion's world.
Wow. Uncle Paul's Jazz Closet?
Yeah. They've got a lot of rehearsal tapes and unreleased concert recordings of like this trio with Joe Lovano and Bill Frisell, which is, probably one of my favorite bands ever.
Wow, okay.
Just like the way they play together and the way they take, familiar songs like standard jazz standards or things like that and just make it into this fresh expression of it. I just know that like the music that I make with my friends and the music my friends write, like Paul Motion is like, I can definitely hear it. And even explicitly, sometimes it's like, yeah, this is kind of like Paul Motion thing, or, it's like its own thing.
For the podcast, is it interviews, or she just goes, I'm going to play this record from start to,
Oh, no, usually it's not like a full record from start to finish. She'll play selections from it. Like usually like each show has a focus. Like I guess recently there was like a concert from France that was recorded but never put out officially on an album. But she has the recordings. And so she would, if it was like a song that they were covering, like a standard, she'd play a recording of maybe like the original recording of that song or some other recording of that song that's not by Paul Motion. And then they'd play their version. Or maybe it was like another version that they recorded. So and then she'll intersperse it with like, he kept like a day book. Like he would write like every day about touring and how his day was going, like recording sessions, rehearsals, like everything. So she reads from that. Like she can see like, oh yeah, here's his day book. Like here's stuff he wrote like on this day that they did this gig. He's also got like an autobiography that was unpublished that he had sent like drafts to her. And so she's reading from that too. And yeah, and I never got to see him live either, unfortunately. But yeah, I've seen Bill a bunch, and I feel like, Paul's influence, like you can kind of hear Paul like in Bill. They spent so much time together.
Which track would you like to play from this record?
Oh, just the first one is fine. Yeah.
Osmosis Part 3?
Sure, yeah.
All right, here we go.
this trio, I mean, they're all like master, listeners and players, and they're all like kind of giving each other space, like it's not, I think it requires the right setting to be able to explore those things and for those things to like have an impact,
Mm-hmm.
like in, certain bands I play in, maybe like that kind of playing doesn't translate or, come across as well or something. But one of my favorite things, like there's this band I play in where one song I just play just like literally like unchanging. Like I try not to change it at all. Like the same dynamic, same tempo. Like I just try to be like drum machine. And that's like super fun and like really trippy too. It's like, whoa, I start to like
you
hallucinate or something.
Yeah,
I'm
totally,
like, oh,
dude.
God.
No, that's
but
hypnotic.
it's cool.
As
Like
hell.
I love that too,
Mm-hmm.
like.
But all right, Evan. Well, if people want to get to know more about what you're doing, follow you. I mean, literally follow you, I guess, on the socials, but just like kind of get to know what you're doing.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I have an Instagram account. I post there occasionally. You can follow me there. ES Woodle, or probably just search my name. I have a website. I try to keep updated with, my recordings, and I keep a little gig calendar on there. I try to keep updated, and evanwoodle.com. Yeah, there's some like contact info on there too. But yeah, I'm just like, mostly hanging out around Seattle right now. I'm not doing a whole lot of touring, which is kind of nice. It's a tough life on the road.
Yes, it is.
But yeah, just playing around Seattle, around the jazz scene. So yeah,
and you
racer
teach as well?
sessions. I do. Yeah, I teach privately. Yeah.
Right on. Well, Evan, thank you so much, man. I'm really excited to go into that Deerhoof record, the Speak record, the Ya 3. I mean, all of them really. Great choices. Yeah, man, this was a pleasure, dude. So hopefully when I'm up in Seattle, maybe you, me, and Chris can all do something or get a coffee or something. Yeah. That'd be really fun.
That would be great. Yeah. And
we'll
and Sheridan.
Make sure Sheridan, of course.
And Ted. Why not?
Everyone. Yeah. We'll get Greg Keplinger out. We'll get Sean Lane. We'll get everyone together.
You should do Greg. Yeah. Have you had Greg on?
No, I would.
Oh, okay.
I would like to get him on. That'd be fun.
Oh man, yeah, definitely get Greg, man.
I want to get Sean too. So
Greg's another massive influence for sure. It's hard to keep him off this list, but he's great. I love seeing Greg play. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, we can talk about that forever too. But I also need to get a Greg snare. So I don't have one yet. So it was great talking to you, man. And I'm sure I'll see you eventually. So
okay, cool. Yeah, thanks, Ben. Yeah, take care.
All right, man. Have a good day.
I'll see you. You too.
All right, today's big fat favorite is from Donnie Marple, and he plays drums for Lee Bryce. The album is live and very plugged in. The release year is 2003. The artist is Dave Weckl Band. Song choice is The Chicken, and the drummer is, of course, Dave Weckl. So here is what Donnie has to say. I went to see Dave Weckl at the age of 14, and I'll never forget seeing the flyer in our high school band room. I honestly didn't know then that there was such a thing as a professional drummer. I assumed drummers were a dime a dozen, playing their part to fit the gig appropriately, but then I saw Dave Weckl and had my former mindset blown to smithereens. Thinking this was a glorified jazz concert, my expectations were low. From the first to the last note of every song, I was invested, studying every ghost note and dynamic of the show. It was the first time I heard a drum set make its own music and even create melodies. It reminded me of the movie Transformers, but the drums came to life instead of the car coming to life. From that day forward, I changed my mindset regarding my goals, and all I wanted to do was make other people feel the way I felt at Dave's concert. I also remember crying in disbelief that he could pull off some of these superhuman grooves, fills, and overall sounds on that Yamaha kit. Every cymbal, bongo, tom, and snare had a voice like a choir of heavenly percussion. Some songs sounded as if 5 drummers were playing at one time. I couldn't wait to get home and add some of these elements to my playing. It's been some process, and to this day, even playing for a country artist, I can see how Dave Weckl inspired me to be a drummer and a full-rounded musician. All right, here is The Chicken. And that's the show. If you're listening on a platform that allows ratings and reviews, do that. It helps more people find the show, so it'll get bigger and better, and hopefully I'll have a chance to sell out one day. But you'll be an OG listener that can brag to all your friends. Anyways, why don't you go and check us out at bigfatsnaredrum.com and follow us on all the socials. Just search for Big Fat Snare Drum and you will find us. The show is edited in part using iZotope RX Audio Editor. It's amazing, so go check that out at iZotope.com. And thanks again to Gunnar Olsen for the theme music. Bye!